Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me all right. Um, this is our new setup and on Facebook, and so I hope that you can hear everything okay. Back up a bit, make myself at home in my home. Today is Thursday, April the 9th. Welcome to everyone. Welcome, Richard. This camera is setting is a little more bouncy, so I will try and stay still so the camera doesn't move. This will be a time of devotion and learning for us. Good morning, Tamara. I have been thinking a lot about the grieving process and how strange it is for me to be grieving things that I didn't even know were important to me, like my walk to work, seeing people face to face, getting hugs at church and saying hello to everyone. And so I have been turning to an old friend whose name is Granger Westberg, and I always have to double check to make sure I got that name right. And also Brent Christensen, who wrote a devotional book based on Westberg's book. Westberg's book is not called that because grief is fun or joyful, but rather because grief done well can bring meaning to the times of our lives that seem painful and dark. Hi, Jane. Sorry that I keep looking down. Part of the new Facebook setting means I have to look at the camera instead of my screen, and that's a hard habit to break. It is good to see you in this strange way, and I'm glad you've joined me. This is the beginning of what is called the triennium, and it is 4 days and 3 nights, which is why it's called Tri. And it starts today with Maundy Thursday, moves into Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter Sunday. Each day and evening comes with part of the story of Jesus's last week on earth. So we begin with Maundy Thursday, a day to take and learn the commandment, which is what Maundy means, that Jesus teaches his disciples tonight. Tonight at 7 o'clock, we hope you can join us here. We will be again live. Reverend Karen will be setting a fancy table, and I will set one up at home as well. But really all you need is yourself, maybe a cracker or a piece of bread and some juice, wine, pop, water, whatever you have. And we will remember Jesus's night with his friends, where he washed their feet, transformed an old tradition into a new tradition we call communion. And it's also the night where he gives a commandment, where he clarifies that he came here to ensure that we knew we were to love others as we are to also love ourselves, taking as our model the way Jesus loved. I'm going to try to move the camera just one more time to make it a little less bouncy. And then I'm going to start today reminding us a little bit about yesterday. One of the parts of grieving and one of the parts of living in and amongst a pandemic is that we will have times, especially at the beginning, when we are numb or in shock, in denial of some of the things and some of the consequences of what's going on. This is a normal stage, and it allows the other aspects of grief to come at us slowly. If it came all at once, it would be too frightening and too painful. we would freeze up. And so our body and heart go into shock to slow down how much information can come in, how many feelings can arise, and how our body is also affected by grief. It has been a day in the news of learning about modeling, about how scientists try and predict the future, though all they have is information about the past. Some of the figures have been very scary because they've had to speak not only about how many people will be ill, but how many people will die. And again, they are only modeling on past information. And so their answers are these huge, large extremes. Very few, maybe a few more, maybe a lot, beyond comprehension. This kind of information has brought me a little bit out of the shock and denial I was in. Helped me remember that while I'm washing my hands and staying home and connecting with you on Facebook and other ways, that there are some people who are very ill. There are some people who are already grieving the loss of a beloved one in their family. So as you leave shock and denial, know that it will weave back in. There will be moments where your numbness returns, moments where things you used to love don't really bring you any pleasure at all anymore. I'm going to just sneak over here. Good morning, Sarah. Now, today we're going to begin to look at the different emotions and feelings and the thoughts and physical sensations they bring when we begin to grieve, when the shock begins to wear off and we realize the consequences of what has happened. Now, I want you to think about loss very widely, as wide as you can today. There is, of course, the major losses we have in our lives. When someone we love dies, when we need to move away from friends or family due to work or unemployment. But there also is smaller losses. The loss of having to move from a large home with a yard to a smaller apartment. Even when we choose to do it of our own volition, we will grieve the freedom a house brings, the fresh air that a backyard brings. Then there are the losses we get that are actually good news with losses entailed. This happens when we get, say, a promotion at work. We get the new corner office, which is great, but we miss walking past some of the old friends we had before we got the promotion. Or in the case of working from home, I didn't even know how much I missed my walk to work until I didn't need to do it. And I immediately missed my colleagues. Elise in the office has a way of ensuring that when I think the whole world is crumbling, she reminds me it's not. She either helps me laugh at myself or the world, or shares a funny joke or a piece of good news. She's a good news collector. And so, while working at home is not painful at all, I'm grieving some losses. So that's how broad an expanse I am talking about when I say loss. I don't just mean the really little things or the really big things. So today, while I talk about the emotions that grief brings, be mindful of how your body, how your heart, how your mind responds and reacts. There's no right way or wrong way. However, in the midst of this, you may realize that you really need a conversation with Lee one-on-one, Reverend Karen, or perhaps a friend that you haven't connected with for a while. Maybe one of those friends you've been grieving and you've really never had time to call them again, but maybe now that you've moved away from them, for this long, and this week you've got extra time, maybe it's a time to reconnect. There are many who believe that grief comes in stages. But the wisest teachers among us say that while there are different parts of grieving, they're more like a labyrinth or a maze that you walk through. You spiral through them. So you may feel anger, and then sadness, and then you might feel some joy trickling in. Well, then you're probably going to feel some more sadness. And we go through these different layers and levels, and they are all bringing us closer to peace. Not pain-free peace, but rather a place where our grief journey begins to make not sense, but have some meaning. So for example, you may find that after a few cycles through grief, you can say, wow, I hate grieving. And I have learned that I'm really strong. I've learned I need my friends and that they'll be there for me. I've learned the energy that comes with anger can move me through fear, and I can do things even when I'm feeling afraid. One of the ways to think about feelings is, it's hard to explain, kind of like 4 buckets. Each one has a main theme, but inside the bucket, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of types of that feeling. So, mad, sad, glad, and scared, which doesn't rhyme, but bear with me. These are our 4 main buckets that we have to draw on, or that get poured into us when we have feelings. But inside each bucket is a myriad of types. You know the old joke that the further north you live in Canada, the more words you have for snow. There is sleet and hail and pellets. Sometimes you get a skim of snow or you get a real dump. The further north you go, the more snow you get, the more kinds. Well, that's like feelings. You may think that you're only feeling mad. But inside mad is kind of ticked, irritated, grumpy, angry, perturbed, and on it goes. I want you to remember this because while it feels like the whole bucket is being poured down on you when you have a feeling, you're actually feeling one piece. And you can imagine it as a marble or drop of water. And try and find a word for what type of mad, sad, glad, or scared that you are. Now, this is the very beginning. As we go deeper into your feelings, you will notice that the buckets are connected. That usually when I am mad and I figure out which words fit with the type of anger I'm feeling, I can sometimes go under them and say, oh, well, some of that anger is because I'm scared. Oh, that's a whole other bucket. And that's how emotions work. They're like waves upon each other. If you can imagine each wave being a different color and creating new colors and differences and bubbles and noises. Emotions will sometimes overwhelm us. We will feel being pulled under the current of those waves. At other times, we will feel like we're sitting quite calmly on the beach and the waves are just touching our feet. Again, there's a huge variety of ways for our feelings to become within. I've been spending time with the Psalms and with Jesus in Lent, and they help us to find words. And for me, knowing that someone has felt this way before, has said it to God, and it's been an important legacy for people to keep in their Bible for that long, millennial. Well, it's like having a ladder or a lifeguard in and amongst those waves. It gives me something to grab hold of. It says to me, respect this feeling. Feel this feeling. It will not last forever. It may teach you something. Have a glass of water. Breathe. Notice where the feeling is in your body and what you may need to do to help release the emotion. Psalm 4. Answer me when I call, O God of my right. You gave me room when I was in distress, so be gracious to me and hear my prayer. It is okay to feel anger and to have that anger flow towards God. God created anger and its myriad of irritations, grumpiness, to full-blown anger at the injustices of our world that burns, or perhaps you go cold, perhaps you freeze, perhaps you move your body with energy. It is okay to say, answer me when I call, O God. It is also okay to be sad and full of angst with God. How long shall my honor suffer shame? How long will these people love vain words and seek after lies? How long will the things we hold dear be disrespected? How long will injustice reign? How long will essential workers not have a living wage? How long will it be that some people can wear masks safely and others, when they cover their faces, we judge? How long? When you are having feelings of sadness, sorrow, depression, angst, despair, feel those feelings. Breathe. If tears come, let them out, even if it means finding a place by yourself or finding someone to share them with. Every grief in our life has a certain number of tears created to be shed. And if you hold them back, well, they get stagnant and they will need to come out sometime. So when you are in a safe place, have a drink of water, breathe, and cry with or without tears, knowing that you are held. God created sadness to help us understand how much we love and we are loved. God, you have put gladness in my heart, more than when their grain and wine abounds. Yes, some people seem to have it all. Sometimes we express to others that we have it all. On social media and other platforms, often people come across as having it all together. I know one parent who each day is showing one of the things her children did that day. What they learned, a craft they made, a walk they went on. And when I see it, I think, wow, she's all together and planned, and she must have all this energy all the time, and her children must always look that good and smiley. She shared the other day that the reason she posts those one moments a day is to remind her that every day there will be one moment that isn't chaos, messy, screaming children, hungry for her attention and food. That once a day, there'll be a moment where she remembers she loves her children, she loves herself, and it's going to be okay. Those are the moments she puts on Facebook, but she's quite honest that those aren't all the moments. They're just some of them. So remember that your moments of gladness, or perhaps more of just a lightening of the load, remember them like candles in a nighttime. Not bright enough to sew by or read by or get warm by, but they remind us that there will be more light in the future. They remind us that the dark is not scary. It may seem scary and feel scary, but it's okay. Scared is that fourth bucket. Fear is rampant these days. I think it always is. It's just that these days, everyone is fearful of at least one thing in common, which is strange. Usually we all have different things we fear. Some people are afraid about their retirement savings because of the age they are, while others are fearful they might be pregnant or might not be pregnant. Some might be fearful about their bank accounts, while others have no thoughts of those worries and fears. Some people have fears that are fancy enough for names, meaning they have fears that don't make logical sense, but take over their bodies anyways. Some people, this is a big, bright blue sky, grips their heart with fear. Others, it would be a small contained closet that would grip their heart with fear. Fear is definitely one of the emotions I feel first in my body. When I'm sad or glad, I often think about it before I realize what my body's doing. Sadness gets me right here. But fear almost always means that somewhere in my belly there's been a shot. I think it's adrenaline, but really, I don't know the biology of it. I just know that my belly feels like it's on fire. Have you ever almost been in a car accident or been in one? You'll know that feeling where your body gets flooded with actual chemicals to make sure you can react appropriately. The hard thing with fear is that our body sometimes goes into that physical reaction when really we know that we're not actually in danger, or not as much danger as our body seems to think. Tonight, as you listen to the story of Jesus's last night, I want you to listen as Jesus and the disciples talk. Imagine what it would have been like. In that upper room, they would have had the underlying fear of knowing they were gathered doing a ritual that was allowed but not blessed by the army's leaders in their town. The Romans allowed for the Jews to have their rituals, but Well, Jesus had been outspoken in the days prior. One of our Gospels says that he went into the temple and threw things in anger. And so the underlying fear that they may all be in trouble. That then gets ramped up as Jesus begins to really keep talking about the fact he says he's going to die. That gets ramped up with the fears of what would we do without Jesus? And then Jesus says, oh, and by the way, someone in our midst will betray us. One of the people we have spent the last 3 years with has decided money is more important. Safety is more important. Or perhaps his idea of what the Messiah should be is more important. Around the table tonight, there will be fear. Different kinds, different sorts. Listen for that. Ponder what your main fear would be if you were in that upper room with Jesus. Would it be of the Romans? Would it be of Peter? Would Peter end up being the leader? Or perhaps you feel more like Judas, fearful of yourself, that you can't keep the faith. Please remember, no matter how you feel when we gather at table tonight, we do so as disciples of Christ, which means we do so knowing Jesus invited us all to be there. The good, the not so great, the ones considering betrayal, they are all at table with Jesus. And it is to all of them that he gives bread, saying, this is life. Deep faith to put at the bottom of your belly forever, to remember you are loved and whole. Jesus then will give a cup of wine to his disciples, each and every one, to say this is a new covenant. So the old covenant was based on how well you behaved, if you were feeling the right feelings. The new covenant, though, it is based on the fact that Jesus lived, died, and will come again. And that's done. We are in covenant with this God forever. And nothing can break that living new covenant, which means we are always forgiven. That we are always in God's arms, even when we are being flooded with emotion. We are held in the cup, in the palms of Jesus. At the end of Psalm 4, the psalmist writes, I will both lie down and sleep in peace. You, O Lord, for you alone, O Lord, make me lie down in safety. In the safety of God's love, what you are feeling is okay, good, and normal. When it becomes overwhelming, reach out. Reach out for persons, places, perhaps a tree you know of on your walk that you can grab hold of and remember you are whole. This will pass. Have a glass of water and take a deep breath of the love of God. And know that you are always invited to the table with Jesus. May God bless you in the coming holy days of these 3 nights. May you break bread tonight. May you lament on Friday. May you light a candle on Saturday to be ready for Easter's amazing surprise. Amen and peace.